There are bad decisions. There are really bad decisions. And then there's the Empire deciding to blow up an entire peaceful planet just to prove a point. Alderaan wasn't some secret rebel base hiding in the shadows. It was basically the galaxy's version of a postcard. Pretty mountains, noble culture, and a capital city that probably had overpriced calf shops. And in one arrogant moment, Tarkin and his Death Star erased all of it. Not for strategy, but for show. And here's where it gets even dumber. They thought this was going to scare everyone into obedience. Like, oh sure, you just vaporized billions of innocent people. Clearly I should trust you with my future. The Empire basically told the galaxy, we can do this to anyone, and then seemed surprised when people decided they didn't really want to be on the list. Fear works until it makes you angry enough to stop caring. Think about the ripple effect. People who were on the fence about the rebellion suddenly found themselves sharpening pitchforks and looking up hyperlane maps. Smugglers started running weapons instead of spice. Former Imperial allies suddenly remembered they had urgent appointments in the Outer Rim. And every single news broadcast replayed that explosion like it was the galaxy's most horrifying fireworks show. The worst part for the Empire is that Alderaan became more powerful in death than it ever was in life. Its destruction turned into a rallying cry. The kind of thing whispered in back alleys and shouted in rebel briefings. Remember, Alderaan? It wasn't just grief, it was fuel. And the more the Empire tried to stamp it out, the faster the flames spread. It's almost poetic in the cruelest way. Tarkin wanted to prove the Death Star could make any system kneel. But all he really proved was that people fight harder when they know exactly what they're fighting against. You can't scare the entire galaxy into silence without giving them something worth risking everything for. And Alderaan became that something overnight. In this video, we're going to break down exactly why blowing up Alderaan wasn't just evil, it was catastrophically stupid. We'll dig into the political fallout, the surge in rebel recruitment, and how one moment of overconfidence from the Empire turned fear into fury. And by the end, you'll see why that single blast from the Death Star didn't just destroy a planet titlet, the match that would burn the Empire down. On paper, it sounds like the ultimate intimidation move. The galaxy's never seen anything like it. A superweapon capable of annihilating a world from across the stars. No messy ground war, no drawn-out siege, just a clean, terrifying demonstration. You almost wonder if the Empire believed people would watch Alderaan vanish and immediately fall in line. But that's where the curiosity kicks in. Did they really think fear would inspire loyalty? Did they think that destroying a core world with no military defenses wouldn't spark outrage from even their own supporters? Or was it all about showing that no one, no matter how peaceful, was beyond their reach? The thing is, Alderaan wasn't some fringe outer rim backwater. It was a cultural jewel, a political hub, a world everyone knew. If the Empire wanted to send a message, they picked a target everyone would recognize instantly. And that's exactly why the fallout was so catastrophic. The more you look at it, the more you start to think this wasn't just a military decision. It was an ideological one. A choice meant to burn the bridge between the Empire and any hope of cooperation with the galaxy's heart. And that choice lit a fire they could never put out. Here's what makes me want to throw my hands in the air. This was preventable. The Empire already had total control over countless systems. Their fleets patrolled hyperspace lanes, their governors ruled planets with iron fists, their propaganda saturated every corner of the holonet. They didn't need to blow up Alderaan to prove they were powerful. They'd already won the fear game. By turning Alderaan into space dust, they crossed a line they didn't need to cross. This wasn't a tactical strike against a rebel fleet. It was the annihilation of billions of unarmed civilians. The kind of move that doesn't just intimidate, it enrages. People who might have been neutral suddenly had a cause to fight for. Think about it if you lived on some neutral mid-rim world and saw the horrors of Alderaan's destruction. What would you feel? Relief that it wasn't your planet? Or the creeping realization that next time, it could be? That's not control. That's desperation disguised as strength. And the arrogance is staggering. Tarkin stood there explaining the plan like it was a flawless stroke of genius, completely ignoring the fact that history has never been kind to tyrants who burn their own bridges. Empires collapse faster when they make martyrs out of their enemies. In the end, this wasn't just an act of cruelty, it was bad strategy. The Empire wanted obedience, but what they got was open defiance. And once the galaxy saw the mask slip, there was no unseeing it. The loss of Alderaan wasn't just numbers in a datapad, it was lives, cultures, and histories, erased in seconds. Families gone without a chance to say goodbye. Art and architecture wiped from existence. Ecosystems destroyed without a trace. A planet that had stood for thousands of years was reduced to debris in the cold void. Imagine the refugees who weren't there that day. People traveling off-world for trade or politics, who suddenly had no home to return to. No family to contact, no city to walk through, No familiar sky to look up at. Just an empty place in the galaxy where their world used to be. And then there's Leia Organa. Watching your home world obliterated, while you're powerless to stop it, is a kind of grief most of us can't comprehend. She carried herself with strength, but every decision she made afterward was shaped by that moment. Alderaan wasn't just a personal loss, it was a wound that never healed. The galaxy felt that loss too. Core worlds that had been quiet suddenly held secret vigils. Merchants risked Imperial patrols to smuggle aid to rebel cells, and former allies of the Empire started rethinking where their loyalties lay. Grief turned into action, but for the survivors, no amount of rebellion could bring back what was gone. Alderaan wasn't just destroyed, it was stolen from history. And that theft left a hole in the galaxy that no victory could ever truly fill. You almost have to marvel at the sheer scale of what the Death Star did. One shot, one command, and an entire world vanished. It's terrifying, yes, but also staggering in its display of technological might. No fleet in history could have done what that battle station did in a single moment. The power behind it was meant to be awe-inspiring, and in a twisted way, it was. The idea that the Empire had harnessed enough destructive force to wipe a planet from existence made even the most defiant systems pause. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a declaration of godlike authority. And yet, that same power is exactly what made the rebellion's defiance so remarkable. They weren't just fighting stormtroopers and star destroyers, they were standing up to a weapon capable of ending their entire world in the blink of an eye. That takes a level of courage that borders on the unbelievable. The image of Alderaan's destruction traveled farther than the Empire probably intended. Every transmission, every whispered retelling, became a story of both horror and resistance. People weren't just afraid, they were inspired to fight. Because if this was the cost of submission, then the risk of rebellion didn't seem so bad. It's strange to think about, but in showcasing the Death Star's power, the Empire also showcased the size of the fight worth having. And that may have been the one thing they couldn't control. For all the darkness of that day, Alderaan's destruction became a spark. It gave the rebellion something it had been missing, a single, unifying moment that every system could rally around. Before Alderaan, the fight was scattered, fragmented into isolated cells. After Alderaan, it became a movement. Recruits flooded in from worlds the Empire thought were too afraid to resist. Smugglers offered their ships, farmers offered their land for bases, and politicians who had once stayed quiet began speaking openly against Imperial rule. The galaxy had seen the worst the Empire could do, and it refused to let that be the final word. Even in the darkest corners, stories of Alderaan became rallying cries. Songs were written, symbols adopted, and the name itself became shorthand for resistance. People would whisper, "Remember Alderaan," the way soldiers remember fallen comrades. It wasn't just mourning, it was a vow. And that vow carried weight. It meant the rebellion was no longer just about politics, it was about survival, about protecting every other world from sharing Alderaan's fate. That gave the cause an urgency and moral clarity that no Imperial propaganda could undermine. In the shadow of tragedy, hope took root. And that hope grew faster than fear could stamp it out. In the end, the destruction of Alderaan was the Empire's greatest strategic blunder. They wanted to crush the rebellion with one decisive show of force, but instead, they created a martyr on a planetary scale. And martyrs have a way of living longer in memory than in life. Tarkin believed fear was the ultimate tool of control, but fear is fragile. It breaks the moment people decide they have nothing left to lose. Alderaan stripped away any illusions about the Empire's willingness to protect its citizens. It told the galaxy, in no uncertain terms, you are not safe, and you never will be. That message was supposed to keep people in line. Instead, it convinced them that resistance was worth the risk. The Empire may have won the moment, but they lost the war for hearts and minds in that same instant. The tragedy is that billions paid the price for that lesson. Families, cultures, and histories were sacrificed on the altar of Imperial ego. And no amount of fear could make the galaxy forget what it saw that day. So when the Death Star finally exploded over Yavin, it wasn't just a military victory. It was justice, however small. For Alderaan, a sign that even the most terrifying power in the galaxy could be brought down by those it sought to destroy. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. My main channel is Critical Analysis Hub, where I post Star Wars content about the movies. My secondary channel is Critical Analysis Hub Plus, where I focus on the shows of Star Wars. And my third channel is Critical Analysis Hub XP, where I post comic books. Be sure to take a moment and check them out. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.